podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I would much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Peace. I'm Majestic.
My brother, Justice Rajee.
All right. So we'll start this conversation, and I'll start it off by saying, and I had to emerge from my not posting a lot on the internet to say, hey, stop posting the person who lost the breakdancing competition because you don't like what they did, because we don't even know the person that won the competition, because y'all keep sharing the person that lost the competition. And I think there's a lot of pieces and parts to this event, this occurrence on planet Earth. And I wanted to add on and get your thoughts. But like the first place I started with it was like our own sometimes investment in being like sharing the thing that you upset about, and then even like I want to make the joke, I want to make a joke now, and so then but the awareness that like all of y'all are making the joke, and then what's happening is we're all sharing the terrible thing with each other over and over again. And that's not actually helping. Like it's not improving the situation. And it like compounds the disappointment and the negative side of it, in that then we don't know about like all the people who had dope routines and people didn't even, I've tried to read and I watched a couple videos like about like how it was being scored and all these things. I mean, I had issues and construction issues, which we'll get to at some point, around the idea of it as an Olympic sport. Cause I just, it's like, I don't know. I don't understand I understand the importance of a national or international stage for breakdancing. I don't totally know how we make it work within the construct of the Olympics. I thought, we need to start there, but I know you had some particular.
Yeah, man. I
would like to hear what you was thinking.
Very similar to you, man. I mean, one, I think we were experiencing where we let our individual interests for attention overshadow our collective ignorance and abdication. We let the idea that we saw one person who was not good be a broader conversation around the abdication of an art form, which is where I can go with you on the other thing, of an art form that was started. And I know there's a whole bunch of goofy dialogue about who hip hop started with and how it started. I'm not even going to go into that rabbit hole. But like started by Black and Latino young people that has a lot of history from other dance processes. Breaking didn't come out of nowhere, right? Nothing comes from nothing. Take from that what you will. Like, and based on other dances, in here in America and Africa, and Cuba, and and all over, and Puerto Rico, and all of these things, and then elevated to a point where it had international interaction, and it was then looped and lumped in with this idea of hip hop, and again the kind of like the principles and the four things of hip hop, and then when you get to a point when the music changes and the dance element of the culture and the music element of culture start to diverge, we just leave the the dance part and go to another thing. It's kind of like that whole thing. We're always on to the next thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we're okay. So the music doesn't make sense to breakdance no more. And then you don't think about breakdancing because now it's about the Running Man. And then
Right.
now it's about this dance, and now it's about that dance. And then you have the audacity to then 40 years later make fun of one bad person's take on the thing when you thought nothing about the preservation of this dance form for the last 35 of those years.
Mm-hmm.
And so you getting an individual thing off when that's a collective idea, I think is just really, 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 really distasteful. But it shows and it goes back to this like cultural incompetency and the inability to take accountability and take responsibility for things that you create and then make sure they stay the way you want them to stay. Right. And you can say it about hip hop, you can say it about graffiti, you say it about a whole bunch of stuff. Right. But I just think it was that example because no one talked about, like to your point, the men and women that were killing.
Right.
Like you talk about this one person who was doing stuff. That's like no one thinks about the person that got 24th in the javelin.
Right. Right. We don't know that person. We don't talk about.
We don't know that person, and maybe that person didn't throw, but so far.
Yeah.
And Ray Gun was trash. But that doesn't mean that you individually can do this without having a broader context to say what happened that breakdancing got so far away from its origin story.
Well, and that is like the thing that rubbed me wrong about it as it was happening. Like, first of all, like I knew someone was going to be terrible because it just was. Like someone was going to get up there. It's going to be like, you are clearly not the winner, and because it is it's dancing. It's like, you know what I mean. It's like watching a really whack. I mean, I guess the closest equivalent I could think of is like a gymnastics where somebody has a really really plain flat, sliced bread floor routine or something, or with the ribbon, and it'd be like, I got she got the ribbon. Look at the ribbon. The ribbon is like, this is boring. What are we doing here? You are not the winner, right? You came out. Good job by you. However, you are not going to get the gold. So there's that, but there's also the piece and our, I mean, I'll say almost arrogance around ownership of something that, like, a lot of folks marginally participate in. Like, even when we was doing music. And
yeah,
it would be like, yo, y'all doing like the real hip hop. But it's like, yo, I'm gonna listen to this crap over here because I like to dance to it. And I ain't gonna, I ain't gonna pay for your tape, even though I think you do the real hip hop. And it's like, all right, I guess. But also, I don't, like later on when you don't like the way it's going, I don't, understand why you're welcome and you're welcome to have your voice and voice your opinion. And I'm also welcome to not really pay attention to you being mad now because you didn't care when it was when form over substance, suited your feel for the day. And this is not in any way a reference to like the idea that music that was not all about some sort of social conscious revolution at every moment and every beat was innately or inordinately or just by design bad. It's about that if it was a party song and we was there partying, that's awesome. And if it was a song that's like, yo, this ain't a party song, this is a song maybe to think about, that's cool. And then if it's, of course we had different dances with social dances, there's performance dances, all kinds of dances. There's dope video, I'm pretty sure I could find. People have chronicled, I mean, all the different ways, even within the construct of hip hop as a part of the timeline and the continuum of Black and diasporally generated dance that is social sometimes, and then sometimes it's performance or challenge based, and these elements that show up in the grainy video, the village in Nigeria, and they're like on the ground doing some stuff, and then the capoeira, and it's like all these places. You know what I'm saying? It's another one. I think it was like the grainy anything from, I want to say, Haiti or like Cuba, and like one of them where they speak a version of Yoruba they don't speak in Nigeria no more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's all these different fragments where these pieces of long existing like styles of doing show back up, right? You know what I mean? The relationship where you can see the connection, like the was it the gumboot dancing from South Africa and the crowd, like where these have similar constructs, you know, and then not the
absolutely
the how flamingo and tango and all these other ones.
Right.
In case y'all didn't know, you know, I know you might be like, but that's Spain. Nah, not really, not necessarily, but that's cool. We'll talk about that later. The premise being though, and very close to this, you know, I realized very early, like I could do the spider a little bit, and I could half do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I wasn't nobody's breakdancer, and then also I didn't necessarily put time into becoming somebody's breakdancer. But those who did, it was like, yo, I support that. Like, and if there's a place to bring had the dancers in the function, or I can go to the breakdancer thing and support, be there, it was, rocking the breaks and the DJs get big, like it's fly, it's fresh. I love catching the videos where other parts of the world. I know, particularly in Korea, in Japan, I want to say those were the two I think I see the most, where there's competitions and events and it's all types of people. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, that's dope. But also, I acknowledge that the majority of the most of the hip hop that we listen to and consume across the spectrum is not created under the idea, or you know what I guess we would consider hip hop at the high end, is not created with the idea of someone breakdancing to it. There is music that still does like look to it as like, I expect people to be dancing to this, whether it's maybe, you know, leaning wherever it lands, but it's not necessarily catering to that. So to come to this moment and had this on this international stage, and then when again someone does a terrible routine that is really like, yo, is this what you really thought the culture was about? And then you be mad, and so then your response is, I'm gonna share and tell everybody how mad I am, and use this as my moment to go see them appropriating. They doing this to us, they doing that to us.
And then right, and then them never think about the role of dance in our music again after that. Right? Like what you just said was like went through all these ways that dance comes through generations.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just like, okay, well, they did it bad. Why they always taking something from us? Okay, back to something else.
Right.
Versus like, no, maybe the fact that Paris decided to have breakdancing as a part, right? Because what people may not talk about is the fact that different places get to choose some of the sports that they want.
Yeah.
So the fact that France chose breakdancing reflects how big it still is, and how big elements of what I'm going to call the kind of origin story in hip hop culture, how big that is, right? And while people could laugh at that, think about how people will then have roaring 20s parties and big band parties and Harlem Nights parties. You're celebrating an era where, frankly, Black people were creating art.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, so then that's the same thing that happened in the 70s, 80s. You're celebrating a time where Black people were creating art. But it becomes disposable because now it's not classical to you, because, again, the origin thing of the music and culture now is like, okay, on to the next one. Mm-hmm. But don't have nobody do the thing that I don't want to do anymore bad, because I'm not going to like that. But I don't give a damn about it. Right, but I'm not going to like it.
I'm so angry. Outraged.
But I'm not angry. I'm not going to do anything about it.
Yeah. I mean,
I get a joke off on culture, right? And that was the thing that bothered me. Like, it's really a joke about the fact that no one appropriated your culture. You willingly stopped caring about it.
Right. You handed it off.
And there's a difference.
Right. And it wasn't like, I mean, I guess it's been revealed, or at least, put in the question that basically, there's a whole lot of other things about access to sport that are definitely fair criticisms of those all parties involved. The insinuation that, basically she was a part of the committee that managed how Australia will be represented. And let's just say the fix was in, or that's the allegation allegedly, to make sure that they went instead of some other more fitting folks who do that there. And the idea that you're not outraged about that, you're not talking about process, you're not discussing what your anger at the international system of raging the music. You are mad about this dancer and then what it encapsulates for you around white folks' access to, and what you perceive as white folks' access to something that you think belongs to you, again, even though you ain't been over there in a minute. It's like being mad at something that happened over by your grandmom and them house, but you ain't been to your grandmom and them house in 27 years. So you're like, how they gonna put that in on what's the name street and so street? And I'm like, well, you don't be over there.
Right.
I mean, like, respectfully, you don't be over there. So who are you to be mad? Like, well, I spent a lot of time there growing up. Yeah, I know you did. But you don't be over there. That's 27 years later. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not a clear pathway for me to be like as upset as you appear to be on the internet about it, and that you're sharing with us, when you, again, you have not actually demonstrated the persistent engagement with this situation, in this circumstance, in this space, that is the that you're actually going to effectuate change around this, or that your investment in this moment is actually bringing us to or from or to anywhere. It's just, you just mad. And I would appreciate a little bit of like, man, actually, you know what? I don't know the last time I knew a breakdancer, a breakdancer's name. Like any breakdancer. When's the last time you seen somebody breakdance?
I'm thinking about it. I mean, outside of like certain hip hop events, again, I think it's becoming almost like a classical art, and I think it should be frankly treated as that. Right? I think it should be treated as like, yo, this is classical art. Because in the same way, we're like, oh, okay, I want to hear someone play Duke Ellington, right? Or the same way, like, we want to see someone keep ballroom dancing alive, right? Because we recognize that it had a role in our history. I think breakdancing should be treated the same way, and popping and locking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we treat it almost as like the constant retread from the past versus like, no, it's a classical art. And again, and this goes back to like accountability of like, what does it mean when you chronicle something that a community has created and you don't just kind of not do it no more because you don't think it's cool? But then the world thinks it's still cool because they see it as a classical art, right?
Right. They see it as something to be invested in and like be a part of. Like, and it, like, I mean, it didn't get as much traction, but folks feeling some sort of way about the sister, young sister from Lithuania that does her thing with the do rag, and they're like, well, why she gotta wear a do rag? And I'm like, I don't know. It's hip hop. People be doing stuff. I don't know. Y'all wear do rags. I found out a lot of y'all got waves because of the chemicals in that stuff you rub it in your hair, not because of the satin. So let's all keep it a buck. What's really going on here? Let's keep it really real about what's happening here.
Hey, man. Just don't be revealing. Don't be revealing when they get their waves. I
had enough of this, man.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
They out here sports enhancing, lying about what develops the waves. You know what I'm saying?
Well, think about between the Beijing and the fake waves, and now the dudes getting locks implanted in their hair, man. Like, this is all,
nothing sacred. Y'all just do anything, man.
In the words of the guy who did the song with Biggie, it's all fucked up now.
I mean, it's anything. Like, you ain't been to the breakdance meetup in 27 years. Like, if you are age, 27 years ain't even, you still in the 90s. It ain't even the 80s. You ain't been. You ain't know the breakdance kid. They do, it was always some dance cats around. You know what I'm saying? We've been doing we was younger. You know what I'm saying? Even now, it's some dance cats. You go search stuff, it's cats. Oh, he's still dancing. He older now, but he still be dancing. He still be
He's still doing the things that captivated him or her as a young person. And again, I don't want to draw the correlation right back to jazz, but I do think it's important when everyone moved on and then jazz artists had to go to Europe. It's no accident jazz artists had to go to Europe to get heard and to still have a career when we had moved on to funk or we had moved on to soul, and soul jazz had kind of played itself out, and certain jazz artists knew that survival meant they were going to do something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but now, if you catch, you know, an artist that did something in 82 or 83 at the Montreux Jazz Festival, it's amazing. Herbie Hancock there in 83 is something to talk about now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it also, man, Herbie Hancock may be not the best guy to use here because he still was doing like rocket and shit. But
Yeah.
so like an artist who had to go to Europe because they appreciated the classical art form.
Yeah. Well,
like it's no different.
As I had exchanged with one of our brothers on the internet that they absorbed some of my entertainment dollars, the thing that Jazz is Dead is doing, tapping into these artists and these jazz musicians that are here. They still with us, right? And doing something new, but doing the music. And when you listen, you're like, yo, this is dope. I love this. I could listen to this more, right? It's not for everybody, because maybe that ain't what you into, but it's good music, right? And the decision that it is no longer worthy of regular attention, maybe part of you, right? Maybe part of you, and it's nobody's fault if I guess pursuant to our conversation about number one entertainer Dr. Umar, if you find him entertaining at times, it's nobody's fault that, like, the music is sort of like the very attractive person that like kind of like pulled your attention away from the other stuff. And you're like, yeah, I was gonna go to that, but then I met them, and so now I'm gonna go over there, and I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna see what they talking about, because I'm real into that, and it's cool. Like, it's nobody's judging you necessarily. However, don't be, when you look back over there at the one that was like, they was over there up rocking, ready to go, and you was like, "Yo, you still over here? You still over here up rocking? I didn't even know you was over here, B." And they're like, "Man, I've been over here the whole time. Man, how you gonna treat me? Don't come over here and like make it like I'm the weirdo. This is the thing."
Well, it's the museum element of culture, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
culture's been created, it doesn't get chronicled, it doesn't get kept and structured. So then you're like, wait, somebody's still doing that? Oh man, I don't like when somebody do that bad. Because I remember that one time I spun on my back in 1984, and me being spun on my back 2 times, that was the shit. And I was really into breakdancing, and I didn't know y'all was still doing it over here. Y'all into that real. So if they're into the real, what are you into?
Right, right. Like, wait,
if they're into the authentic,
well, yeah.
then what are you into?
Well,
and then that's not me. That's not being an old hip hop old hater. That's just be saying it. If you frame something as authentic, if you frame it as the real, if you frame it as the old school, you're also framing it that it's part of the classical part of the art form.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean? Like, again, not drawing the jazz, but it's the same. Like, there's hip hop dance now that maybe has nothing to do with all that kind of stuff, but it's still hip hop dance. And if something was the beginning of it, then we should give it its credibility,
Yeah.
and not just try to make fun of things for likes, because it's still this attention culture. You have to create memes to get the likes for your wittiness versus having a higher and deeper conversation about how appropriation takes place, and how is it appropriation if you put it out on the porch. If someone come into your house and take something, that's one thing. It's appropriation if you put it outside on the lawn.
You put it outside the lawn with a free sign,
right, and left it outside, they don't want it,
then
and someone takes it,
right.
And if they use it wrong, you're like, oh, you ain't using that like you wouldn't even use that right. Well, you gave that up.
Right, you handed it off. So yeah, I would like folks. I would hope, and again, I just want to reiterate, like, when you share something that's whack, and everyone's sharing the thing that's whack, now we're all thinking about the thing that's whack. And sometimes that might be vital and immediate and important, but other times it's like once the first day of it, we didn't need no more. And the only people that needed to do more was people that really had really really wow, chef kiss pieces of comedy to like make me smile. If you're not there, stay out of it, man. Like leave it to the pros. Leave it to the people that really put something good together to make fun of that moment. Don't just be like, I'm gonna do it too. Like, nah, man, like don't do it. Just like I know you think you're being original, you're not. It's probably whack. Probably what you're about to share is not dope. And so don't do it. And again, at least once share a video of the person that actually won the medal. Like, and here's the person who actually medaled in this event. Here they are. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I think we covered that. Anybody got?
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing else to it other than just asking people to not be so engaged in the attention culture that we walk away from the reality of like what art looks like and what the preservation of art, and acknowledging that the preservation of art may come from folks around the world, and it may look a little different when it comes back to you. And the only way to ensure that it kind of looks like the thing you liked it to look like is to make sure that you preserve it. Because without that, you don't really have a right to speak on it.
Yeah.
Collectively.
Absolutely. So with that, we're going to transition to a conversation about a great video piece you shared. And I want to give credit. So this is Ray Daniels Media, the Gauds Show, as he calls it, Gauds Show. We'll save thoughts and feelings about that for another time. Let me get it. And it's Chris and Marc talk about the name of the video. I might put the link so folks can watch it themselves because it's a really interesting, it's really, I think, important conversation. But it's an interview with Marc Barnes, one of the most successful Black club owners. I'm reading from their description, and Chris Latimer, king of marketing and advertising, on the episode, and they talk about really, in many ways, basically the club and kind of crossover between clubs and entertainment scene of like the 90s, late 90s, late 80s, early 90s through to the 2000s, and even
right.
even to today. But party entertainment culture, a really good cross-sectional conversation. I'd love to hear more from them individuals about their work. But the thing that was, I guess, the place I'll start, and so I would suggest folks go. I'll put a link in the show notes for this episode and listen to their whole discussion, because I think it really, especially if you're younger, you might adapt to it differently. But if you are age, and depending on whether in low, in whatever range that you've been grown for a while, I mean, you're a club person, you're not a club person. But they discuss a lot of stuff around nightlife, around places, space, and venues, about the nature of parties and gatherings, right? And sometimes I think we've discussed, and maybe we haven't, but the idea that some people are more fun to party with than other people, and it's not necessarily just a clear cut thing of like, but I think, well, it's a better way. We talk about some people is more cool. It just like you ain't got it. I guess like you'd be like, oh man, I'm cool because I got these nice sneakers. Maybe you are, but also you might just be a dude with some expensive sneakers.
Maybe you bought cool, right? You didn't earn cool.
You ain't earned.
You bought cool,
right? Like you ain't have attractive powers. You just showed up, and maybe the room tilted because the floor was weak. I don't know.
You putting a Superman outfit on don't make you Superman.
Right, exactly. So there's a lot in their conversation, and I want to leave some of the things they said for folks to go to discover, but some of the issues they brought up, I think, are really, really interesting. So I guess I'll start by passing to give like what was one of the things that rung out to you in that conversation that you wanted us to add on.
Yeah, I mean, I sent it to you just because I thought especially if you lived on the East Coast during that time, they ran down such an important component of like the things that influenced you, right? Like again, kind of even going back to this dance culture, and then also like the situations in which things occur. So you think about these clubs, or you think about, the places that influence you so much, and someone had to own it, someone had to do that night, someone had to make these things happen. And then hearing two successful Black men talk about how clubs have changed over the last 30 years and how it has adapted to the times,
Mm-hmm.
and what you've had to do to maintain kind of like a club atmosphere, but how the stuff externally started to impact how clubs were done. The broader conversation about heading to Cancun, right? And how you know, that had a huge influence on stuff. And I would argue actually gave way to the Jay-Z, like the rationalization of Jay-Z. So here's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
You always had hustlers that went out of the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And regular people, not just hustlers, but regular working folks, right? But you had hustlers who people had the resources to say at that point, things going to like Cancun and stuff like that was expensive and difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the early 90s. So you had street guys from all across the country who were doing, and women who all across the country who were doing that. And that's where they started to meet like the Jay-Z's. And they would run against each other. Also, you got to give a shout out to Vegas and Atlantic City for the fights where people would see each other, as well as the picnic weekends from the Greek, Penn Relays. And then you can't forget Virginia Beach,
Mm-hmm.
Jones Beach. What was the name? What was the spot up your way that they used to do the black joint too?
In Belmar.
Belmar, yeah. So you had all these places, but my point about Cancun was that you had places where people would all meet. So then when you have this like rap talking about this like higher end lifestyle, it was something that was real, that people were across the up and down the East Coast, I'm sure across the country, were interacting with each other in these ways, right? So it began to open up this whole Jay-Z culture, and then obviously many more people started to go to Cancun, Miami, these kind of things, which kind of shifted traveling structures. I mean, traveling history too, when like you start seeing more people go to these destinations. And
Right.
then now you have them being paid for, but to know that it was a Black man and they were like Black people who were influential in really moving that part of culture, which doesn't get discussed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to elevate too that there were people who were involved in various industries that made money, not all of them illegal. Many of them not.
Absolutely.
That were, coming to these events that they, and whether or not, what I'm saying, club culture at it has always had an element of either you have the status because of who you are and your connections to be able to access certain spaces, or you had the money and that relationship, right? You know what I'm saying? So even when we were younger men who, I mean, I was just telling a young person about, like, I lived on my own in the late 90s. I ain't had no money. No, let me be clear. I had enough money to pay my rent and for us to keep some food. But if for certain stuff that we would go to do, our own, level of local notoriety was very supportive in being able to to go, like, I'm gonna go to this event and not have to really pay. Or
oh, absolutely,
I could go in here and I could, like, they're happy to see me and I can dance and I can, I may have to pay for my own beers, but I don't got to pay to cover. Because they're like, oh, that's what's the name in there. Yeah, come on in. You know what I'm saying? But there was other places I wasn't going because I didn't have clothes for the dress code, and I wasn't gonna pay that anyway. They wasn't probably playing the music I like. But that's not neither here nor there. Suffice it to say, I wasn't flying to Cancun in 1999 to go to one of them parties. I wasn't doing it like that. But I ain't got no beef with people that was doing it like that. Right? That's that's what you want to do. That's your business. Like, grown people like to step out sometimes. People like to go to parties, go dance, go listen to music, go whatever. go with your friends, go like nightlife and third. This as a part of the how you say the
Third spaces.
pantheon of third spaces, right? This is one of those things, right? And the big club where there's lots of people dancing, thousands of people dancing, and I knew like I remember going down to Delaware Avenue in Philadelphia. Going by, I want to say at least a couple of them forays through DC. We did not go to Dream, but I remember going like, oh, Dream or Live was a Dream or Live was one of them.
Right, we knew DC Live, Dream. Yeah, like
Yeah,
we knew it was there. We knew it was present. We was going somewhere else and doing something a little different. We was on a slightly different mission.
Yeah, we was on a different movement, but we knew what was going on over there. And if that was something we wanted to be a part of, there was a pathway that you would have to engage in and might involve some different sneakers and a little more cash out your pocket. Right?
It definitely involved a little more cash. And that's also the thing, again, where I just think like community, but community in ways that might sound odd to people around like what had to happen, who did what, who influenced what, at what point the rappers became the biggest draw versus the actual club night itself, which again is really a part and parcel of this conversation. Because at some point it was like, we love hip hop, broadly defined. And at some point it was like, man, we like rap. Right? Like we like a DJ, but we don't want to be scratching all the time.
Right.
Like we like art, but I don't know if we like vandalism.
Right.
Right.
Like, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it kind of shifted, and at the same time, there's this culture of let's go to the club, and then it's like there's going to be an artist here who's going to stand here and look, and you're going to have to pay that person to be here, and that's how you're going to get people in here. And then knowing how places had to adjust to that, knowing the changes in clothing, and then like the whole culture of big white tees, and then the resulting like what can you wear, like that element of the culture. And then for folks, like you said, it won't take too much, but I do think the dialogue around BMF and Big Meech and them are really important culturally, because here's what I'll say about that. Big Meech got locked up like 2004 or 5, right? Like Big Meech been locked up like about 20 years.
Yeah.
And we still talk about him like he's either out of jail or just went to jail.
Right. Like, or he gonna be here next week.
Right. Yeah, like we talk about Big Meech in ways that like I don't think Black people have ever talked about like someone involved in street life ever.
Yeah.
Like not Bubby Johnson, like and again, the strange thing is most of the stuff Meech and them did happened before the smartphone became such a big part of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point you could be like, okay, well, this happened because he's part of the internet world. Where it's like, he kind of, I don't really know if you look at it as part of like the internet world.
Yeah.
He videotaped stuff and he's on the internet. But a lot of that stuff was happening that long ago, but also like how that fundamentally changed club culture in Atlanta, which then started to change club culture everywhere. And then the role of the tables in the obliteration of dancing because the role of the tables. You know what I mean? And for me, I guess I'll say that it speaks to that culture is like an unfinished sentence, right? Culture ain't got no periods in it. And in the same way, the change in culture and the change of everything going on in the communities, it don't really have a period. Things are constantly evolving. And I'm glad that, for example, that culture of like talking about going out and the changes can be talked about by the guys who actually did it and the women who actually did it made money off of it. Versus in 20 years, a New York Times writer does a book about it. And we're all screaming appropriation.
Right.
How they appropriating what I did when I was 21 in 2001 and I was at the club? Well, because you moved on to something else, and people who were chronicling history have went back to look at when seismic shifts happen in culture. So that's why.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot there that I appreciated. Um, like Chris Latimer talking about like product placement, like the way corporate and the stuff that I thought was actually I would have liked to like hear more about, like him talking about like what what entertainment and the way people go to kick it brings to the perception of a place, right? That uh Essence Fest being embraced by the city of New Orleans, right? And there's probably some folks feel like maybe it's too embraced. You know, I mean, you do sometimes to the some challenging dynamics with local folks and whatever have you. But that notwithstanding, like tourism brings something to cities and people coming in for entertainment, people looking to your city as a place to go see arts and culture, right? Because we might not always treat like nightlife as arts and culture, right? And that could be nightlife, could be clubs and other stuff, but nightlife can also could be musical performers. Um, the more highbrow things, right, so to speak, like opera or the orchestra or certain art galleries or some other more nouveau, more over here may be given a certain different type of esteem to again, like whatever if it's just you just got a club that's a great club right, like so the so-and-so room at such and such, it'd be cracking, and it's like 3 floors of dancing, and there's one room got reggae, and the other room got house, and the other room is doing hip-hop, and there's a room with something else in it, like that's Marc Barnes, like he does the big mega clubs, 6,000-7,000 people, which when you start thinking about 6,000-7,000 people in a place partying, that's a lot of people. That's like that's a much more complicated equation than I think most of the times we are inclined to think about, like a place where people party. I've heard like in some sort of discussion that when they start tapping on sort of like if folks are coming to a brunch in this place, like corporate America in the corporate space in that city should not like get the benefit sort of off the perception of cool of the place, right? And their relationship of attracting professionals and folks with talent, abilities, and skills, and that are going to bring the flavor to where you at, whoever you are, even if even if it's Branson, Missouri, it's somewhere that's like, yo, I'm the man in Branson, and because you speak to that demographics, what likes and interests, and how they identify and how they see themselves, right? If it's we have a tendency to like frame a certain value on it, particularly it comes to us, right? The spot we went to in Houston, for and had brunch before we flew out, us not knowing about the Sunday fun day realities, we won't make that mistake. What I'm saying? Right. But like it's people coming to just go there to have brunch or coming, I mean? And
oh yeah, Sunday fun day. Yeah.
Like it's not a bad thing for the interests that love that city to say, let me make sure that this is a great experience for people that are coming to spend their money and have a good time and be with their friends and meet new people maybe and network or whatever. And like it's not hurting nobody. That's a good thing for everybody if folks can come in and enjoy your town, whatever town that may be. Right now, we ain't talking about people coming to do, especially the more adverse aspects of what Freaknik became. Right, we're just talking about regular kicking it on your leisure time, right, and how that interfaces with the culture and feel of a place. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was really an interesting notion. You know what I mean? Because it is a moneymaker for places.
Can I use two things that you just brought up? Thank you again for your insight. Like, so one, it leads me to the point of like, let's take Freaknik and let's take the Greek in Philly. Mm-hmm. And so you think about Freaknik starts as the DC picnic in Atlanta.
Right.
So it's an important thing to note here that it starts as a college event.
Right.
right? Because so much in our community, we act like everything is defined by like the hard Scrabble element of our community.
Right.
Everything comes from like
Right.
the hood where people are suffering and good times is on and the meat is old. And you know what I mean? Like
It ain't no steak
we
with the
do
beans and
ourselves just
rice.
like this service
Yeah.
to think that all of the culture that comes from us starts at like this really hard Scrabble, harmful place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like number one. To think about the Greek picnic starts because the Divine Nine are having a time. They all get together,
Yep.
and eventually, the people who wasn't in college heard about it.
Like, hey, they up in the. I heard it. They up in the park. You know what I'm saying?
And took it over, and in some ways harmed it.
Barbecuing.
And let's just be honest, right? Like, so there's that like component that I think again, with value is created. The Penn Relays is another great example, right? Where value was created from Black people of all different kinds getting together.
Yeah.
And it's not just created from like the sob story of Black America, right?
Yeah.
And then two, to your point about brunch becoming this more thing that morphs out of as nightlife is changing, especially in cities where things are getting more dangerous, right? Where nightlife is getting more dangerous, that then brunch becomes the next play. It becomes the next place where Black people and being led by Black women are coming together to like be together, create community, right? And like this idea of constantly creating community.
Mm-hmm.
And community doesn't have to always look like an academic term for it to be community, right? It's community because if you ask people about the clubs of, the Latin Quarter in New York or the Red Parrot or the Red Zone or the Tunnel or DC Live or Love, or all the clubs out in Atlanta with the boy AG and you know what I'm saying, like all that kind of stuff. Those are communal experiences. The same way we would be like, oh man, somebody went to see Miles at the Vanguard, 69, man, it was crazy, right? And again, it's important to remember that jazz was not always our highbrow music.
Right. Not at all.
Right? Jazz was not always the music that we thought smarty arty listen to, right? Like there's a place where jazz is far from that. Jazz is the music of the community in ways that some people were not comfortable with.
Right.
Where blues was the music of the community that people were not always comfortable with. Just like, again, going back to hip hop and people spinning on a piece of cardboard, right? Like those things were not always accepted. And just, I think for me, the through line that runs through it is, what does it mean to be envisioning and constantly aware and interrogating the power of what you create and what that means, and not just giving it up, and also recognizing that just because you see something that looks one way, it can feel a whole nother way in 15, 20 years, right? I'll stop from my side by just saying, I remember as a kid, there was a club between 59th and 60th in Market, right? It was called High Rollers. It was just a club in a parking lot, right? And, besides it just being right adjacent, which I should have thought about this as a kid, it was adjacent to the most prolific drug blocks in the area, right? But as a kid, you would just see High Rollers lit up. But I didn't think about it as a kid. It just was like, okay, that's where everybody's at. We're now in all the websites that chronicle history, High Rollers is like the place with the most pictures of different, street guys, JBM, this, that, and the third.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I'm not talking about the negative impact. I'm talking about the fact that now that's a place where people are chronicling history of what that meant 35 years ago. But while you were looking at it, it didn't look like that.
Right. Right.
So what are we looking at? And what are we looking at today that in 35 years, people will be like, oh man, that was crazy. And then when we look back on it, like, oh yeah, I didn't think that was that. And what does it mean for us to take accountability for what that stuff looks like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of it is definitely one of the things that the conversation they had helped me think about. Like, I'm a big advocate for the importance of like third spaces and places where people go to kick it and like whatever it is you into, right? Like if you really like to dance, that's cool. If you don't like to dance, that's cool. But there is a like, there's an opera. I mean, I'll speak to it. I for a large part did not enjoy most of the like, kind of wide open nature of certain club scenes because it's like, my hypervigilance led me to be like, man, people might be in here wilding, and I don't need to be a part of that. So like, if we wasn't there in certain capacities, I don't want to be, or if I'm not connected to people that are doing the event, or I'm not there with the right people, I don't want to be there. You know what I'm saying? Also, I wasn't, how you say, most of that age or window, um, I was not out looking for love, so to speak. So, some of the other things that the nightclub would have had to offer, if it wasn't really about dancing, which, I do lament like the rare amount of times that I really get to go somewhere and dance the way like I would have danced like when we, like a Jimmy Sang's party that what's the name and then was spinning at.
Yeah.
That like Nate was spinning at or something, you know what I'm saying? Or even like, when I do this, shout out to Selector, I listen to him on Twitch. I also think like, man, I can't wait so I can go and like dance with Selector spinning because I like to dance. I like to socially dance. I like to hear music that I like and be dancing and I have a drink and I high five my mans and I can dance with, it's also lovely when I can dance with the person I love most. But, they not there. I dance by myself. You know what I'm saying? I can dance with somebody else.
Right.
It's all good, man. I like dancing. You know what I'm saying? And there is a part of life that's like, man, it's a bummer when you can't go do that. You know what I mean? It's nice to go somewhere and they got your jam on and when the crowd, everybody's feeling the same song. Like, it's a beautiful experience. It's good times. You know what I mean? You leave on a high, like, oh, we're gonna get some sandwiches or some waffles or something, and you go back to wherever you going. And then some of y'all, again, you might have been looking for love or love for now, whatever. It's nothing about that.
That's right.
That's that's y'all stuff.
In all the right or wrong places.
But that is all of those things are none of that is a bad thing. Right? Among people who are, again, able to function and make their own decisions. And it but the idea that like some of that be unsafe, right? That somebody is literally outside waiting for people to leave inebriated to rob them. It's kind of jacked up. It's whack. Right? No, you take it with the course, right? But there's a party that starts going, I'm too old for this. I can't be trying to come out no spot worried that, you know what I'm saying, is two dudes in a Chevy, like a Chevy Malibu.
Chevy Malibu, Nissan Sentra, Chevy Cruze.
Right.
They got a whole now some sort of Kia that they just
the Kia they done stole.
They stole from somebody.
Yeah, like I ain't got time to be out here. I'm gonna go to the lounge over there where I know they're gonna play some music I like. I can get a really nice cocktail. I might have some conversations. I ain't gonna get to dance maybe the way I would have liked to dance 20 years ago, but that's cool because I'm gonna go have a nice night. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm gonna go with my peoples. We meet up. We, know what I mean? We gonna go in the spot. We're gonna have some drinks. We're gonna have a conversation. We might meet some people. You know what I mean? So people might be like, find whatever we was talking about interesting. You might learn something. You might meet somebody. You might make a connect. You know what I'm saying? That opens up a door to some other stuff, or even just a learning opportunity, right? Whatever it may be. It's like, we was Miami, we talked to the bartender and he told us like next time you come, go here. You know what I'm saying? If you want to chill and have a great time. Right. Like you learn through those experiences. And it's disappointing, or it can be seen as it's definitely like that world has changed than for whatever that world was in the 90s and in the 2000s. And also I'm changed. 48. I ain't really trying to be in a 9,000 person club. I don't think. You know what I mean? Like if we go somewhere else in the world and like just so I could be like, I went and like, I've heard about the crazy clubs in Germany. Like, just so I could go like look in the door and be like, wow, they really party at 7:30 in the morning. Just
Right,
like
right.
I'm
Or just
watching.
go in and
I
right.
get in there
Go
and
in and take a pictures and you can say you was there and then
I
go
get in
back
there and
and leave out
do
like, all
my
right, good.
movement for like 30, 40 minutes, and then I'm gonna go lay down because why am I still awake if I ain't slept yet at 7:30 in the morning?
Yeah. I
You
I
know,
will say too, I mean, I think to your point, if I could just jump in real
yeah,
fast,
yeah.
like I just think your point about that is actually taken really important too. Because again, it lends itself to like, here's what we think about what's okay in America, right? And then you get somewhere else and be like, oh, they're still dancing, they're still partying. It's 4:30, it's 5 o'clock, right? Because think about America, if it's 4:30, 5 o'clock, because of our Byzantine rules about what time you should stop partying, which seems very just like who really decided it. And you really feel it the most if you're like in a blue state or like one of the blue places like in the Northeast, New England, like you start to realize like, wait, why do we have to stop? Like, why is it so? Why is this idea of you stopping at 2 o'clock what you should stop at versus 6 or versus 12? Like, what made 2 o'clock like an hour that's an appropriate, like, responsible hour to stop partying?
Right.
And then you go somewhere else, you be like, wait, it's 6 o'clock in the morning and people are still partying.
They just get going.
Like, it's light outside and they're treated like it's not light outside, right? And I think there also is the importance of within it's possible for people to have nightlife culture experiences not in America, because again, sometimes it starts to make you realize, damn, we've made a decision about things that seems very arbitrary. Like you thought it made sense, but the more you think about it, be like, oh man, this is actually much more arbitrary than I thought.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just for me, the fact of seeing these people who are part of the nightlife culture and be successful, because you hear about so many other nightlife people, frankly, who borrow liberally from black culture and they're not black. And that's fine if depending on who they are and how they show up around culture. But it's still good to see people like Chris Latimer and Marc Barnes. Like, there's also a brother named Taz who used to be in business with Marc Barnes, and they had like a really big falling out, and that changed like DC night culture. But like it's still good to see them talking about it in ways that like they can again speak for themselves and have kind of like that grounding in a cultural space that then is chronicled in history.
Absolutely, yes. And I got two more things I wanted to touch on before we wrap on this. I mean, and one I think is more serious, and one I think is more fun. The more serious one is, and this is legitimate business that brings value to a space, and I think it's really, really important because entertainment and like many things that pertains to us, right? We by the structural decisions of this society, the places that when we show up, it's frowned upon, right? For us to be there. So then we flourish in these other spaces where it's what? Not frowned upon. But then other people like to benefit off the flourish, but then, they want to stigmatize it and it's something less than. And it's like, oh, well, he's like a party promoter. Like,
right.
Yeah, I mean, like I could imagine, I'm sure there's some room where some person would probably speak at least some way negatively about the executive capacity of these two brothers, and actually the other brother too that's hosting the show, because I'm understanding he's got some sort of history in the entertainment music. I don't know exactly his orientation, but he's out there in some way. I don't know, right? But definitely would be like, oh well, they're not an executive in this way. They're not a whatever. And it's like, nah, these dudes is running multiple years of things that value added to the culture, entertainment, spent money, moved people's products and brands, right? Created atmosphere that led to other, things making money, and they should be respected for that, right? And if someone is serious about the business of entertainment, it shouldn't be something that we, I don't know, that we denigrate. I think it's really important, like to respect, and I guess, and I think something really important to what I like when Marc was talking about, like you go in the bathroom is nasty, or the food, like it's like, I'm saying, like all these things that are like, yo, man, people come here have a good time. You can't, like when they was talking about the carpets, getting clean.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, oh yeah, I've been to some
Yeah.
places where they had nasty, it smelled weird. And it's like,
Nasty carpet.
yeah, I mean, it's
You
like, yeah, I
know,
don't want to be here no more.
so I know you were going to deal with the serious one, then the funny thing. So just my add on to the serious one is I think about it like the black quarterback.
Mm.
You know how for a long time it was like black quarterbacks didn't have the executive management
Mm-hmm.
skills
Yeah, they can't.
that we used to talk about. Like certain quarterbacks had people like Randall Warren Moon kind of got hit with that scarlet letter, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then over time, no one ever says that ever again.
Yeah, they
Because
tried to, but then they shut up.
yeah, because they got a guy that throws passes behind his back and like,
Sideways, upside down.
oh man, this guy is crazy. But you know what I'm saying? Like, but I think it's much in that way and how we'll look at the other party promoters who are into certain stuff because they have access to capital and resources and networks, and we'll look at them differently than we'll look at those brothers. So I just think it's unfortunate, but a matter of time before that is like that yet another myth gets shattered by the reality of how people show and prove. So
The one that was more fun was this concept of curation.
okay,
Kicking it with, and it's definitely a challenging thing these days, and not not to say that I would always. I mean, I feel like I like me. I like hanging out with me. I feel like most of the time I'm a value add to the experience. However, you may not know me like that, and that's cool. But the idea that like you go in spaces and um how you say I'm gonna say this. I'm trying to say this in a way that is is simultaneously welcoming that people can show up as they are, but also acknowledges that sometimes as you are is not as interesting as someone else is. Right? Like
yeah,
like it's a real thing. Like you be, like I don't want to party. Some people I don't even want to party with. And I think it's something too, like when somebody look at you and they like, I like the cut of your jib, man. Y'all brothers go on in. Like y'all brothers,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like in whether
And
that
that,
is
I just gotta tell you, just you brought back an old school ass line there, the cut of your jib, man. Man, you was a hep cat, man. You laid it down with that one, Jack. And
you know what I'm
pardon me.
saying? I mean, very like coming to America. You brothers came in on a different boat. Y'all come on in here, man. Like you clearly didn't come with this rabble over here. Like in that concept, as it operates in our society, like, sometimes it was a proxy, like, or people thought it was a proxy for like having money or whatever. But often it was a blend. Again, it was a blend of you maybe you wasn't out there in the streets, but people that was out there in the streets was cool with you. And so if you pulled up, then that's what's the name of the man. Nah, he with us. He good. He in. Or again, maybe the streets people there's somebody else. However you're connected culturally, right? Ties in the community that you're in has a value. The way you just show up in the world, meaning you just, I don't know who dude is, but he fly. Like he came through, his energy was like, it's like, man, come up in here. You know, even, most of our young life, and it's still sometimes, I think I saw a video, some random, it was like in Europe, and it was like a dude, and I don't know, I think he was supposed to be somebody, but it was like him and another dude, and it was a bunch of women who they said were models. Again, it's the internet. You never know if anything's real on the internet, but apparently they wasn't getting let in a place, and he was like, I will, he was kind of like, I bring all the ladies. And then they were like, we don't care. You know what I'm saying? That you bring all of it, and they all left because they wouldn't let them in the club. Right. But like this idea that, especially like with certain spaces, that somebody looks at you, they make an assessment, and they go, not so much. Not you tonight. You know what I'm saying? And, I don't know if that's always fair, but sometimes life on this particular square footage of land, that's par for the course, man. Like people, I can't help it if people don't, you got a weird energy about you, whatever. Like you come in or like very obvious things, like you seem to be have the wrong outfit on, or the way you put it together isn't flowing. Like we're in a place where we don't largely as a society want to like evaluate people that way. But it do mean something sometimes. Like it's not where you're from, it's where you at. And sometimes like everybody don't want to be with you. Like, and they might not be wrong if they don't want to be with you. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means at this particular venue, this wasn't the bag, right? Now there is though, there is something too also though, someone not understanding or being in a space, being in a way that's out of tune with what that space is about, right? So if it's a night like a mellow cocktail lounge situation, nice music, maybe, you drinking, people just having conversations, maybe, talking, and then you come in with the energy. It's like, yo, this ain't the space. Like that's the wrong space. Like you came to the wrong space for that. Right? Just because that's what you want to do, don't mean that's what everyone else here need to do now. Um, and the idea that some people move through society and they're tastemakers. They have a way about them, or they have, and it's not just like some juvenile sort of like high school popularity type of thing. You know what I mean? Because I don't want somebody. Cause I think somebody could think about it that, oh, it's like, you mean the most popular? Nah, man. It's like a person can look at you, if they don't know you, they can look at you and see something and say, yeah. Or you demonstrate in some way quickly that you understand the nature of this world you're walking into tonight. So if that's, yeah, man, we three, and you show your money in the right way, so that they know, like, okay, they serious. They ain't coming here to be goofy. Or again, your clothes or the way you walk into space doesn't flag to somebody like, these three dudes look like a problem. That to me matters. And someone that has patted people down at a door and had to look at them like, and give them the, like, don't be foolish tonight. Right? No, don't make this tonight to find out if you can get into the chicken wing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it matters. And I, because of the way the internet works, it gets weird. And so I know it's a scary topic for people to be making judgments and assessments of people. But I think it's important to think about. You know what I'm saying? That, like, yo, man, sometimes it's nice with somebody, you go into a place and it's like, okay, everybody here seems to be on the same wavelength about what we're doing tonight. And I appreciate that. So, I don't know if you had any thoughts on the curation aspect.
So I think it's this money as king conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Where if I have the money to come in somewhere, I should be able to come in because I have the money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are certain spaces and conversations about civil rights. You're absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to, hey, do you match the energy that we're trying to project in this space? And we have a dress code, and some of it is discretion. Right. And, here's the thing about this particular place. You don't have to go in a club. You need to be able to go to a pharmacy. Right. Like, you don't need to be able to go into an after hours. Like,
right.
And so,
especially
while right. And then while on one level it's like, okay, I got the money to be in here. The other part is there's part of it that you paid $20 to be in that doesn't really cover the bet in this place. And then sometimes you have to be okay with knowing that your $20 doesn't really cover the bet.
Mm-hmm.
But when money is king, you assume that I had the money to give you to the door. So you know what? I make this place beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always make the place beautiful. And that's just the fact. And the reality of it is, how do you make sure where you're going that you match where you're going? Not just, I have the money to get in and I want to take advantage of the culture they curated, right? I want to take advantage of what they did here. So I don't want to be a part of what they did here, but I want to take advantage of it because I want to see the women. Right. I want to see the men.
Right. I'm looking for something. You know what I'm saying?
Versus, are you contributing to culture? Are you contributing to the curation?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's fair. I always think back to, I think it was my first time going to London, and so I go to like a night, and so I get there, and I think I had on like jeans and boots. It wasn't nothing like super crazy, but it also, I was like, it was cold. It's London, right? So I get there and I'm like, damn, man, I know, sorry, my brother, I didn't get dressed up this and the third. He looked at me, he was like, it's okay. you're not one of the road men. We know how you like. We just because you don't have on certain stuff, we know you're not coming in to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And I appreciated that. And I thought, at the same time, I did have that question like, damn, if I was from England, they'd have treated me totally different. Right.
Right.
But
Right.
but they thing was like, dog, we can look at you, you're not here for that. Right. So
come on in.
Right. And I was able to enjoy, and I don't know about all the other brothers who may have wanted to come in that couldn't come in. But over the same time, hey man, you know what they're doing in there. And if you want to be in there, you might want to think about what you got to do to be in there. That's in any space, man. So I think curation is really important. And I think, there's spaces where maybe there's not as much curation because it's just based on you being in the place, but that doesn't mean you should knock when places are curated.
Yeah. And and we can, like I said, there's other ways to approach curation in this day and time, from a who you tell about something perspective to a, and I know there is depending on the scale and the nature of the event you're doing, especially like if you sell tickets to me, then you can't sell somebody a ticket and then when they get there, be like, I don't like the way you dress. So they ain't gonna let you in. That'd be a cold piece, unless it said it on the ticket. Like this ticket just gives permission to show up, but we'll give you your money back. We don't like how you roll up in here. Right.
Yeah.
But the idea that like that every space ain't for everybody, and that's okay. But that there is a very real thing to like, and I think the crassness of sort of the projection of like, if I could pay, then y'all need to let me do whatever I want to do up in here, and be here however I want to be, or which is the classic discussion of a lot of my youth. Is like, just because you got the stuff that people covet, right? You have money. It don't necessarily mean you cool, or like the way people treat you because they know that you have these things or this status, economically necessarily, which however it was derived, it doesn't suffice for the reality of being a person that's like fun to be around, right? It's not the same. Right. It's
right,
not saying that somebody's a hanger on because you could pay for all the drinks versus people are like, yo, that's my man. It's what's in the this is a lot, this is this is that. Whatever that thing when somebody come into space, you know what I mean, and they see you and they tip hat, you know what I'm saying, get a couple drinks on me for them too, or you know what I mean, all that stuff. Those social dynamics of how people feel people. It's still something I think as a society, as a culture, I'm not with letting that go. I mean, like, you kind of a herd, man. You a herd, and like, get it together, figure out, like, like, why don't nobody like me? You know what I'm saying? Like the what's the name? The Harold and Blue Note song with Teddy telling like, hey, you know what I'm saying? The people live down in lower development homes. You know what I mean? You won't even buy them a drink. Is that any way to be? You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be like that. I'm saying, is that any way to be? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's something to your manner. There's something to being mindful to me of how you move in space, how you treat people. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not telling anyone to be controlled or dictated by their perception of their image, but I'm telling you to be thoughtful about the person that you move out in the world as is something that you could decide. Like, if certain people, I'll like this how I get it in, and if some people don't like that, that's on them. I can respect that. If but don't you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, yeah, I act a certain kind of way, and some people don't like that, and then I'm mad at them people for not liking it. Like, just go on dance on the other side of the room or whatever. You know what I mean? But say that to say, and I think I don't remember. We still got to have that conversation about like what kind of events you getting, what kind of parties you getting invited to at some point, and what's going on.
Yeah, you're right.
That's we'll get to that later. But
we'll save that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to them. Like I said, it was really. I'm gonna put a link in the show notes, and I think it was really good. They had a lot of thoughts, a lot of other stuff. I'm not, like I said, I'm gonna leave for folks to go listen to and think about. Maybe we could return to at a future date. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. So with that, unless you got something else.
No, sir.
All right. So with that, let's say peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Good Brothers. Thank you to my good brother, I'm Majestic. Good Brothers is a part of the Ask Your Oldhead podcast, and you can support the podcast by listening, rating, and subscribing where you listen, and sharing. The other ways you can support the podcast is by becoming a patron. Just search Justice Rajee on Patreon and subscribe and help me offset the costs of creating. Other ways to support, you can still go buy a sweatshirt or some other items I got there on the Etsy shop. But there'll be more to come in the future. Like I said, brothers in the lab, redeveloping this thing. So, thank you for listening. Always feel free to shoot some feedback to us at askyouroldhead@gmail.com or at any social media of mine. Look up Justice Rajee, and more than likely, that's me, unless somebody out there impersonating, stealing identities and whatnot. In any event, I'm going to get out of here. So, appreciate you. Peace.